Morning, dear students. Welcome to online classes, Mangalore University. Today, in my session, I will be talking about Animal Farm, especially dealing with the chapter 7. So, this novel, Animal Farm, is prescribed for BA, Additional English, third semester. So, before we go to the session of today, we will have a kind, recap about what actually happened in chapter 6. See, dear students, in chapter 6, there are so many important things have happened, especially putting out of Snowball from Animal Farm and the treacherous attitude of Squealer as well as Napoleon. See, the same attitude will continue as Napoleon and Squealer took over the complete command on Animal Farm. See, in this chapter, um, slightly we will have some important things, like for example, the bloodshed, horrible events which are going to be happening there inside the Animal Farm in this chapter. And the animals started to rebuild a windmill. These are all the two important factors you have to notice in this particular unit, chapter 7. Now we will continue with the discussion of Animal Farm, what is going to be happening there inside the Animal Farm. See, the human world is keenly watching the events in the Animal Farm. See, whereas the human beings are observing Animal Farm, especially what is going to be happening there. The the fall of Windfall, just not because of uh, the curious efforts of Snowball. Snowball did not do anything wrong in order to fall the windmill. See, the windmill project, it was a complete failure project. That is what the human beings observing closely how the animals are reacting with that situation. It appears that the problems are getting worse and worse day by day. See, every day the animals are facing lot of problems. The starvation is there while building, a windmill. They are facing lot of problems, like they're running out of food, starvation is there, and the animals are struggling to find the food, whereas which is not available. And Napoleon, he does not bother about to provide food to the animals. Afraid of this, Napoleon asks, see, just while looking at this kind of a very difficult situation in Animal Farm, Napoleon asks Mr. Wimper to convey the news to the human world that the animal farm is self-sufficient and is not lacking any food. Look at that. See, the animals, by that he wanted to give a message to the world, human being. The animals are not running out of food. They are having sufficient food inside the animal farm. So that the hens learn that they would have to surrender their eggs. What actually Napoleon said, Napoleon commanded the hens to surrender eggs in order to sell, to provide food for the other animals. They stage a demonstration which lasts when Napoleon decides to ration their food portions. By this time, nine hens have lost their lives. See, nine hens, they protested. They decided that not to surrender their eggs to the Napoleon. So ultimately, they lost their lives. So they killed by Napoleon and his the treacherous dogs. The animals have become convinced that during the nights, Snowball is nowhere on screen in this particular chapter. Whereas all the animals, I mean, Napoleon and Squealer, they are making a beautiful platform. With that, there will be an interference of Snowball. Whatever the horrible things and destructive things which are going to be happening inside the animal farms, just because of Snowball's interference, Snowball's entrance. So Snowball sneaks into the farm and subverts their labor. That is what the other animals thought. As a result, Snowball has become a threat to the animals. Obviously, all animals have an eye on Snowball, that he will become a threat. Uh, Ultimately, they had the kind of completely forgotten the concept of Snowball, and they decided to neglect him. Although the danger is only valid in their imagination, so it is all about their imagination. In fact, he is not appearing in the animal form. See, Squealer informs that Snowball has sold himself off to Frederick, and that from the beginning he had been working with Mr. Jones. And one more, rumor which was spread by Squealer: Snowball is working in favor of Frederick as well as Mr. Jones. He is working, in favor of them. Why that? He is not in favor of the animals. That is the kind of rumor that was spread by Squealer. On a day in a spring, one fine day, Napoleon summons all animals in a meeting. Especially, he wanted to gather all the animals and conducted a meeting there. During this meeting, he calls upon all the animals that had appeared to go against his wish from the beginning. Look at that. Whoever expresses their aggression, their inconvenience with Snowball, they must have to be treated black and blue. Like that, he made a wonderful platform in order to threat the other animals. Like whichever the animals go against his wish, they include 4 pigs and 3 hens. Look at that. See, especially in this particular platform, they include 4 pigs. 4 pigs are working in favor of Snowball, and 3 hens. Ultimately, next moment, Napoleon orders his dogs to murder the animals, especially 4 pigs and 3 hens. Without having any mercy on them, he made a command, and he ordered his dogs to kill pigs who are working in favor of Snowball, and he also ordered to kill hens, those who are refused to surrender their eggs. During the same meeting, many other animals also confess. So this is the kind of a bloodshed which is going to be happening in the farm, whereas you could not notice one animal is killing the other animal right from the beginning of the novel. Confess to crimes which they believed were instigated by Snowball. He gave a chance. Whoever worked in favor of Snowball, they must have to confess. They must have to regret what they did. Eventually, Napoleon outlaws sing the song Beasts of England. He decided that not to follow henceforth, the Beasts of England. Rather than that, instead of that, and then he replaces it with one that the pig poet Minimus has created. He has created one more song. He wanted that song should be replaced with Beasts of England. However, the animals do not find the song to be as meaningful as the previous song. The animals found that Minimus' song is not as meaningful as the Beasts of England. So it was heard. There might be short notes you will have in the examination, especially regarding with this chapter. There might be a questions on bloodshed. There are some annotations also will be covered in this particular chapter. This chapter is very important. Why? Because there are bloodsheds. There are untiring work of animals and rebuilding windmill, and how obviously day by day all animals are about to lose their tempers yeah, under the leadership of Napoleon as well as Squealer. It was heard that Snowball was hiding in one of the adjoining farms. See, he was working in favor of some other neighboring farms. Snowball. There was a pile of timber, and Mr. Pilkington as well as Mr. Frederick were interested in it. Whenever the deal took shape, a Snowball was noticed to be in that particular farm. There was a rumor, where Napoleon as well as the Squealer they spread this kind of a rumor. Snowball is working in favor of Billington and Mr. Frederick. These are all human beings, almost like Mr. Jones then. Then the farm grew more timid about him. Everything, whatever the bad thing had happened in the animal farm, who is responsible? Ultimately, Snowball is responsible. He created that kind of a story on Snowball. Even broken windows and blocked drains were put on his name. See, look at that. Whatever the drastic things are going to be happening, obviously they will blame Snowball even for the broken windows as well as blocked drains in the animal farm. Napoleon was livid and investigated the whole farm. He supposedly found traces of Snowball all over the farm. He was trying to search out where Snowball is hiding. Napoleon ordered all the animals to assemble in the yard. That is the reason why he called for a meeting. In that meeting, when they were all gathered together, Napoleon emerged from the farmhouse with his 9 huge dogs. Look at that, I see. He brought along with him 9 huge dogs and frisking very horrible and turning around him and uttering growls that sent shivers down all the animals' spines. See, this is the bloodshed where you will notice the 9 dogs of Napoleon were, caused several deaths in the animal farm. Especially the bloodshed was happening. They all covered silently in their places, all the animals, seeming to know in advance that some terrible thing was about to happen. Napoleon stood sternly, surveying his audience. Then he uttered a high pitched whimper. Look at that. Immediately the dogs bounded forward, seized 4 of the legs. Earlierly, Earlier, I mentioned about the 4 dogs, I mean 4 pigs. They assumed that they were working in favor of Snowball, so that he ordered his dogs to kill 4 pigs by the ear and dragged them. See, look at that. Look at the horrible and terrible event which is happening inside the animal farm. The pigs ultimately killed by the dogs, the squirreling drugs of Napoleon, squealing with pain and terror. See, the pigs are facing lot of pain, lot of terror, lot of bloodsheds. Then the Napoleon's feet. Finally, they surrendered before the Napoleon's feet. They agreed that the pig's ears were bleeding. The dogs had tasted the blood of the pigs as well as hens, and for that moment, they appeared to go quite mad. See, the dogs were becoming mad at that particular moment. So, to the amazement of everybody, 3 of them flung themselves upon Boxer. Again, see, they were not only attacking on 4 pigs and 3 hens, they were also about to attack and kill Boxer ultimately, but there were no match for his agility as well as the strength. As we have seen, that Boxer is the untiring horse. He is working harder and harder, and these dogs are no match, nowhere match with the strength of the uh, Boxer. So Boxer finally shown his strength in order to take away the dogs from him. The pigs confessed that they had been secretly in touch with Snowball. Finally, there was a confession. With the force of Napoleon, they were in touch with Snowball. When they had finished their confession, the dogs promptly tore their throats out. Finally, they left these 4 pigs, and in a terrible voice, Napoleon demanded whether any other animal had anything to confess. If there is any other animal in the entire animal farm, if they wanted to confess anything else, he asked. Then the 3 hens again they came forward, a goose came forward, a sheep came forward, were all slain on the spot for their crimes. They confessed. The other animals were totally shaken and miserable. By looking at this horrible incident inside the animal farm, the other animals were shaken, they were miserable, they were not in a condition to look at how the things are going to be happening then. Since Jones had left the farm, no animal had killed the others. But that see in the chapter first there we had noticed that all the animals rebelled against Mr. Jones, and they could possibly took him out of the farm. After that incident, no animal was killed by other animal. Finally, in the treacherous leadership, hypocritic leadership of Squealer and Napoleon, they caused some of the animals' bloodshed inside the animal farm. So there might be an annotation, dear friends, in this chapter. They were always cold and usually hungry as well. See, this line is taken from chapter 7. In the bitter cold of winter, the animals struggle to rebuild the animal farm, windmill. In January, they fall short of food, a fact that they work to conceal from the human farmers around them, lest animals farm be perceived to be falling. The humans refused to believe that a snowball caused the destruction of the windmill. They did not believe that a snowball was the reason to destruction of the windmill. They did not believe. Finally, they saying that windmills wall walls simply were not thick enough. That is the reason why that was broken down. The animals deem this explanation false, but they nevertheless decide to build the walls twice as thick as this time. Squealer gives ennobling speeches on the glory of sacrifice. See the kind of sacrifice they are making in order to uplift the values of the animal farm. He finally glorifies himself, but the other animals acquire their real inspiration from the example of Boxer, the person who works harder and harder than forever. And finally, this chapter focuses on the bloodshed in the animal farm. And because of Napoleon, all the animals suffered a lot of things are happening inside this particular chapter, especially with the despotic rule of Napoleon became a dictator in the animal farm. Obviously, what actually animal wanted, nobody should have been taken over the dictatorship. Finally, ultimately, Napoleon became a dictator then, but he failed to feed the animals in the animal farm. The rumor crossed the border. The animals started to work hard than ever to build a stronger than old windmill. So, in conclusion, we have to look at a lot of things inside this particular unit. Especially, Napoleon has failed to plan adequately for winter, and famine has crawled into the farm. The famine has arrived, as well as in the time at the time of winter, they were running out of food. He was not making a proper plan in order to feed the animals. That was the failure of his leadership. He creates a false image of an efficient farm when it is evident that there is a famine. A snowball appears to be Napoleon's excuse for all the misfortunes that befall the farm. He was a victim. Snowball is a victim. Undoubtedly, he is supposed to be a victim inside the animal farm. Napoleon's script is the same that was used by Hitler when he rose to power. It is a very truth concept. Napoleon is turning out to be a Hitler by his nature, and he calls for the meeting, and all the animals publicly executes the rebels, including four pigs. That was a tragedy happened then, just because of the despotic leadership of Napoleon. It is important to note that both the hens and pigs confessed their conspiracies with the hope that they would be forgiven. But Napoleon appears to have had other ideas. When Napoleon outlaws beasts of England, finally he outlaws beasts of England. He wanted to replace the song of the other pig with the beasts of the England. Now, this is all about today's session, my dear friends. There will be question of this particular unit in the examination. Read well and prepare well for the examination, especially regarding with short notes and as well as annotations. Thank you very much. Happy reading. Stay safe.